Everybody. The Facebook and Google ad world could be looking at a full-blown crisis with Apple's announcement of stricter privacy policies. And with GDPR and CCPA, this trend will only continue. Well, gamification appears to be the most effective way to collect consumer data and remain compliant. But don't take my word for it. Today, I'm talking with Carl Dixon from CVM People and Kevin Bauer from 3 Radical. They're here to talk about the science behind gamification. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Good to be here.
Thanks very much, Rafe. A pleasure to be here.
So, Carl, let's start with you. You authored a study about gamification. Why gamification, and why should it be better explored or further explored by other companies?
So first off, I'm a massive fan of computer games. I have been since I was a child, and I think that really helps. And I think gamification is one of those things where after the big sort of boom in excitement around it, perhaps 8-9 years ago, I suppose, it's one of those things that, like all these things do, it falls off the hype curve, and you see Gartner stats from a few years ago. I think 80% of gamification apps are likely to fail. Video games are an enormously rich well of engagement psychology, of understanding what motivates people and what excites people. There is everything from the power of stories, which I mean we'll come on to perhaps in a little bit, to mechanisms around incentivizing behavior and exchanges of value. And all of this at a very sort of basic psychological level is really valuable for marketers, people interested in customer service, advertisers to understand and be able to bring into their day-to-day lives. So it doesn't even need to be, points and high scores and badges and things like that. Actually, just taking the learnings around how we interact with each other and with mechanisms that we enjoy or that challenge us, and how we can bring those to bear to incentivize behaviors that are beneficial to the business, but also pleasurable, positive to the customer.
Kevin, 3 Radical's been using gamification as a MarTech platform. What kind of success have you guys had, and what obstacles?
Yeah, it's a great, thank you for asking it. We've had a lot of success really in helping brands rethink how they design their customer experience and how they get value out of that, both for themselves and for their customers. To what we were speaking about just a few minutes ago, gamification has really been misunderstood over the last couple of years. And really, gamification is about how do I create an environment where customers can feel comfortable and confident in making the decisions that they want to make about their own journey, and in sharing with the brand feedback on how they can improve that going forward. So if we think of it in that context, then we're really able to help brands rethink their entire customer experience from beginning to end in such a way that they improve the customer experience as well as capture more consented data to further improve their business models down the road.
So it's not just about gathering data, it's also about engagement, correct?
Correct. I think the two go hand in hand. If it is well designed, like any customer experience, in order to be able to take an additional action, to experience a new thing, to go down a new path, whether that's virtual, physical, what have you, there are key decisions that are made, and there are key incentives along the way for people to make those decisions. All we are doing in gamification is really highlighting those elements and really pulling them to the fore in terms of strategy and operations.
Just to jump on the back of that, I think it's you want to create a virtuous circle. I think in terms of the data gathering and using it to generate insight, you can use the gamification mechanisms to create essentially equity and value exchange. You offer value and an experience, and in return you can get the data and insight and create that sort of resonance, that sort of positive emotional resonance. The customers are more happy to share information with you because they feel like you're not sort of sneaking around, taking it from cookies, storing stuff that they don't know about, that sort of thing, as people get wiser to what's going on. And obviously, I think Facebook, this whole thing might backfire in terms of what they're talking about how much data is collected and how it's collected. I think people will come out on the side of Apple. And so being transparent and upfront by offering effectively fun, value, whatever it might be, for that data is a great way forward.
So what type of companies or industries would benefit from gamification?
Any industry that is really looking to really improve its data position, in particular its first-party data position, of course. Industries that are looking for and needing really direct feedback that they can take action against. There's a lot of industries that are really struggling to get insights from consumers and take action against those. We're having a lot of conversations at Three Radical in the healthcare industry is one example, where there's just a tremendous need to get feedback from patients on their policies, on their healthcare systems. Financial services is another one. Not life and death, of course, but similar in complexity and in importance and value in a person's life. So a lot of these industries, as well as like industries like retail, that are just looking to be able to break the curse of the comp, as I call it, which is repeating the same discount year after year after year because they have no better tool in their toolbox, are really reaching for things like this.
Absolutely. I think, the retail one's an interesting one because you know, over the long term, and I think, particularly in marketing and very much so in digital, it's very, very easy to lose sight of one of the core tenets of marketing. And that's actually, your sort of brand position and how customers perceive you, and building brand equity over the long term. It almost becomes a very day-to-day trading, numbers-driven sales support type environment. Whereas, you can use gamification not just for actually, we need to get our data and build it quick. We need to create, outreach that's going to bring in more data, which is obviously fantastic and useful. But actually, you can help redefine your interaction with customers and what they can expect from you.
Let's talk about integration of being able to take a gaming platform. And we're talking about real games here. We're not talking about tic-tac-toe. You're talking about RPG and strategy and all that stuff, but also in marketing research and gathering data. What are some of the challenges? I mean, that's hard for me to visualize that being a seamless integration.
Yeah, in having implemented this several times quite recently, some of the challenges are essentially the same challenges that exist for brands kind of across their business. We are trying to integrate, and customers are trying to integrate everything, as you said, from RPG games and more advanced video games to simple surveys, simple data capture, simple instant win mechanics, a whole variety of tools. They're all fundamentally rooted in understanding the customer. So the ability to be able to identify a customer in your given brand, to be able to tie data to that customer and send that data around to different marketing communication platforms or content management platforms, are some of the core challenges that we come across. The other one, which is equally large, is whether a brand has a data strategy to begin with.
Like everything, it's not a silver bullet, it's not a magic bullet. There is groundwork and foundations that need to be in place to really reap the value of this. I think things like, developing a data strategy, developing some endpoints, developing and articulating some clear goals that you want to achieve. If you don't start with that, if you just start, like I say, slapping in scoreboards or, sort of socialization without any purpose, then you won't achieve what you want to.
So let me ask you, Kevin, it seems like gamification, initially there was a resistance to it. Do you find that is changing now? Do you find that more and more companies are reaching out to companies like Three Radical and saying, hey, look, we got to change our playbook here?
Yeah, I think it's we're in a really interesting time. I think we referenced a hype cycle earlier, and I don't think there's an official hype cycle on this right now, but it is interesting that we would be kind of on that upper curve of hype cycle right now, where there are still some brands who still have, I guess, a stigma about it from back in the days, and they're just starting to kind of sniff around. But a large number of customers are coming to us and essentially saying, hey, what I've done in the past clearly isn't working. And I'm struggling to keep up with the pace of innovation. And they're seeing this as a method to really build their core foundation of strategic agility for their brand by creating a data strategy and a data foundation that can really be leveraged no matter what happens in the market.
So the question is, build or buy? Kevin, let's start with you.
We've had this conversation quite often, and I think it really comes down to a couple of different things. What are you really looking to get out of it, and at what scale? There's certainly some use cases where if you are simply looking for a small mechanic for an individual marketing campaign, and that's kind of the extent of your vision, it's probably fairly easy to stand up an instant win scratch card type thing and go for it. But I think the real value in this comes from looking at a much broader, deeply rooted strategy where I can build and link different experiences together that allows these customers to experience my brand along their own path over time. And that type of integration is a much heavier deployment where I think you'd want to look at buying something.
Young Jedi Kevin Bauer and fellow gaming nerd Carl Dixon, thank you both for joining me today.
Thanks
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.